Hi, this is Bernard Cohen, and you're listening to Glenda's Dragon's Den on Wild FM.
Hi, welcome everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, your host of Glenda's Dragon's Den. With me today in the studio, I have my co-host Ashley,
What's up?
my sister Megan,
Hello.
and my Dragon Wrangler, LD. We wanted to apologize for last week. You know, technology is great, and sometimes technology is not. But I did run the show on a Facebook watch, so hopefully you caught it. If not, you could just go to the page, Glenda's Dragon's Den, and all of our videos are there. I do want to, before I go on, I do want to say that tonight's episode does contain sensitive subject matter, and I want to make everyone aware of that, so you could be prepared and you don't get shocked or anything. It's basically we're going to be dealing with child abuse in very, very various ways of detail, a lot of detail. I also have online or on the phone special guest child advocate guardian Ad Litem April Butler, and we will be discussing, like I said, a lot of details of the dangers of children that they face today, and basically hopefully you could then start paying attention and be aware of different signs so you can help your children, or help your grandkids or children of friends, just children in general. Before we go on, Ashley, how was your week?
Pretty chaotic because last week my son turned 18, and on top of that, graduated the same day. So at the last minute, I slapped together a graduation / birthday party, and got people to come in from like Philadelphia and stuff. I'm like, oh. And now he's an adult, and I'm like trying to work that tightrope of like, all right, you're no longer a child, you're an adult. But fortunately, I've kind of always treated him like he was an adult since he was like 6, with obvious,
Right.
things switched around. I can't say go get a job when you're 6, but so it's actually been kind of an easy transition. But he's been out hanging out with friends over the weekend, which is good. But part of me's like, where's the child? He's not a child. He's a man now. Oh my God, he's a man! And then it just keeps going. That's just a big cycle I'm going through.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. I went through it with my 3 kids, and I was like, okay, when did this happen? It's
Like, you sure you don't need your diaper changed? Ma, I'm 35. Okay, all right, so no, that means no. Okay, got it. I'm going to go over here now, bye.
You can change mine, though, if you're really
No, I'm good.
jonesing, Trying to help a girl out here.
All righty. Obviously.
That's a different kind of show altogether.
Yeah, all together.
I didn't mean on the air. I don't think this table would hold me, but
Industrial strength changing table.
yes.
I have to be more than 16 inches, though.
Megan, I apologize in advance.
That's going to be on our first T-shirt.
Yeah.
And Glenda's Dragon's Den, I apologize in advance.
So, why don't we just bring April on?
Don't give a fuck how I am. Is that it?
No, not really.
Okay.
Oh,
No,
not
I'm
if
Long
you're
as
an
we've
adult.
got
I
that
like
out of the
that.
way.
I am joking. It's
Now
when
she's
I
putting
get
words in
very
his mouth.
hot,
I see how this is. You see this, Mike?
and I get a lot of humidity, and it's very humid outside. I don't care. So
It's like you get those
So
little
how
tiny
you-
little
how
little
you
baby
doing?
hairs that stick out. You're like Medusa. You just don't care. Like, get away from me. You see this?
we came back.
Face.
you came back,
we came back.
and this is why I don't ask him how he's doing. You
So-
understand now? Okay, that
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm always doing good.
Hey.
You know, I know where to hide all the bodies.
Hey.
You know.
Well, don't say that on air now. Everyone knows you know how to hide the bodies.
Yeah, they do. That's okay.
Every port of refuge has its price.
Oh, boy.
So, let's welcome April.
April, did you bail? You
Did
still
you
with us?
bail? You still with us?
For me, that's for sure.
Helps if I turn the mic on.
Behave, Larry.
Behave. Oh, come on. When has he?
April, are you new?
Not hardly. I've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And you hold the record for most Facebook friends who have blocked me. Just so you know.
That's probably true. That's because you're unique, Larry, and
Oh, what a
people can't
democratic way
handle
of putting
unique.
it.
But then again, you hold the record for blocking most Facebook friends. So,
That's true too.
yeah, we've
I have
known each
quite a
other a
block
long
list.
time.
So he's actually performing a service. He helps weed out the weak ones.
Exactly. if they can deal with Larry, they're good.
Yeah, this dog hunts.
That's okay.
Oh, boy. So, April, tell us a little bit about yourself so people know exactly what you do.
Oh, fuck it, April. It's a 2-hour show. Tell us whatever you want to tell us.
It's a party. It just needs to be longer than 16
you
inches.
just wait. Well, let's see. About myself, I'll just make that brief. I was one of those abused children. My story is not nearly as horrific as, well, what most children go through. And the court cases that I have had as a CASA, that's a court-appointed special advocate. That was what I was called in Tennessee. In Florida, I'm called a guardian ad litem.
Right.
So I'll give you the real short version. Abandoned by my mother at age 2. Lived with my paternal grandmother until I was 12. My father was a career soldier. He was sent to Vietnam and other places, so I was sent to live with her. That was actually a very good time in my life. She was raising a grandchild, me, long before it became very common as it is today, which is sad but true. When I was 12, my father decided that he was going to be a dad, or so he thought. And my father was a hardcore alcoholic. And when he drank, he was evil. That's the only way to put it. I paid for the sins of my mother, his sins, my stepmother's sins, and everybody's sin till I was 16. And when I say I paid for it, well, let's see. I had a broken jaw. I was beaten pretty much every day with whatever he could get his hands on, but he preferred his fists or switches with thorns. Now, I will tell you, this is back in the 70s. I went to school. For example, there were several times I dressed out in PE. I had bloody, bruised legs. He was smart enough not to hit me in the face. I was immediately told to go back in, to put my clothes on, to not dress out until they were gone. And that was the extent of it. There was no, oh my gosh, this has happened to you. What's going on here? It's very obvious you're getting your ass beat, excuse me. Nothing. Crickets. Okay. I will allude back to that here about crickets in a bit. When I was 16, honestly, I'd had enough. I was very ill-prepared, I will say, to deal with the world. I was not taught the common things that you should teach your children in life, I mean, I could wash dishes and stuff like that, of course, because I did a whole lot of that. But, you know, how to budget, how to plan meals, you know, you get the picture.
Yep.
But at 16, he got exceptionally drunk one night. And my father was very fond of guns. I suppose that's from being in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And he pulled a gun on me and told me that he thought, well, I was such a pain in the ass that maybe he should just end my life.
Mm.
Luckily, he didn't shoot me, obviously, right then. My stepmother tried her best to intervene, but she was her own little piece of work in her own way, but I'm not going to talk about her. So she managed to calm him down. I packed a little bag, and out the door I went. And you have to realize I tried to run away 5 times before that, but as you could tell, I obviously wasn't too bright because I didn't get very far before the police brought me back home. But I also did not have any kind of support network, neighbors, friends, that kind of thing.
Right.
So that night, though, he passed out. I slipped out the back door, and I never went back, and I never looked back. The next few years, I have to say, were rather difficult in many ways. But, you know, life teaches us things, and I learned a lot of life experience the hard way. I'm not complaining. I'm not comparing myself to anybody else.
Right.
I'm just kind of letting you know what led me down to get me here today. And thankfully, I did go to therapy. I will tell you, I did have PTSD, which a lot of abused children have. In fact, I would say all of them do. Some more greater than others, depending on what has happened to them. And I later down the road got married, had a child, and that child is now grown up. And I think I've rubbed off on her a little bit. She also became a child advocate for a while, and now she is a mental health counselor. So I'm very proud of that fact. She was never abused in any way. I was determined to break that cycle, and I had no desire, honestly, to abuse my child.
Right.
So let's see. When she was about 10 years old, I was like an old hippie, but I'm not an old hippie. I kind of resisted computers when they came out. I knew what they were. I knew what they did. But I was like, you know, computers, whatever. You know, I'll deal with them at some point. Well, my daughter's best friend moved back to the Netherlands. And, of course, it's very expensive to call back and forth to Europe.
Right.
And they were both rather heartbroken and wanted to stay in touch. So, you know, okay, let's set up email. Did that. This is, roughly 2001, 2002. Of course, the Internet had been active roughly, openly active, I should say, for, you know, about 10 years. We know so much more today about the Internet and what it's capable of and the evil that it can bring. And that's all kinds of evil, not just child abuse. But she played an online game, the only one she ever played. It seemed very innocuous at the time. Mm-hmm. It was called Coke Music. And you made your little avatar, and you walked around to people's little rooms, and you played music. You could chat, of course, back and forth on the screen. I watched her. Truthfully, it seemed very innocent, I admit. I was rather innocent, not anymore. But short version is my computer got hacked.
Oh.
I had, at the time, a very good friend who was very good with computers in more ways than one. And I took him my computer. He's the one that told me it got hacked. He's like, and he knew exactly where it came from. He said, she was in chat, your firewall's dropped. I said, right. And he's like, yeah, somebody came in through a back door. I said, what? I said, and he says they were looking apparently for her pictures. I'm like, first of all, I don't really have pictures of her on the computer. I mean, there might have been a few here and there. You know, she was 10 years old, and when I tell you she was 10, she was 10. These weren't sexy pictures or anything that could remotely be considered that, okay? Mm-hmm. He said, well, that's what he was after. And I said, huh, which honestly pissed me off, and it frightened me. I'm not going to lie.
Right.
And I was like, what can be done about this, if anything? He said, let me see what I can find out. So I spoke with her, and she had become friends with a young man of the age of 12 named Max, who lived in Virginia. Who lived in Michigan. Well, a few days later, my friend got back to me, and Max was a 39-year-old man who lived in Herndon, Virginia. I said, what in the hell is this? He says, I can help you out if you like. I said, okay, please do. Let's just say old Robert's computer caught a very bad virus that ate it up, and the last thing that he saw on his screen before his screen went dark was, I'm not going to say my daughter's name.
Right.
I'll just call her Jane. By the way, Robert, this is Jane's mother. And if you ever try to contact my daughter in any way, shape, or form again, you'll meet your maker. And it went black. Needless to say, I never had any problems with him again, but it totally changed. It changed how I let her online. It changed my view of the computers. I decided I needed to really educate myself. Now, am I a computer whiz? No. Am I a hacker or something like that? No. But I have the ability to read very fast. It's a gift, honestly. It comes from being a sickly child. I read a lot. I still do. But I can read very fast, and I remember what I read. So I made it my mission to educate myself, okay? I started evolving a little. I started educating her, my daughter.
Right.
And I also learned about programs, which they're much more sophisticated now. Back then, they were keyloggers.
Right.
You know, I wanted to see exactly what she was looking at, where she was going, what she was doing, and who she was talking to. And I told her these things would be done, which she knew that because she knows her mother don't play. So I initiated these. I have to give my daughter credit. She listened to her mother. There was just a few places I had to block. There was definitely no more chat of any kind, whether in a game, a chat room. Her and her friend would email back and forth. There was, this is when AOL was popular and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Back then, thank God for dial-up. Today, we have, of course, high-speed internet, and that's a whole different thing. But so I thought, I bet as the internet grows, well, I should say more people get the internet,
Right.
this is going to be a big problem. Of course, here we are all these years later, and I will tell you, yes, it is. But I thought, I want to do a little more for kids. My house was always full of kids. I was Mama Red. I mean, they stayed with me, had a good time, but yet there was nothing funky going on. A lot of people were like, why do you, let these kids, we'd have sleepovers, stuff like that. I mean, normal kid stuff.
Right.
Yeah, well, I don't want to do this. I said, first of all, I want to know who my daughter's associating with. Second of all, you as parents, at least you know your children in a safe place, with someone who's responsible and is not going to, either let them act the fool or, as they got to be teenagers, do drugs, drink, etc.
Exactly.
But I'm getting slightly ahead of myself into the teenage years. But as we progressed, and I got involved with a couple of online organizations to start with, kind of educated myself on what was out there as far as, because the internet, as you well know, is a wealth of information in good ways and bad ways. Well, I started with, I guess you could say, the bad way, progressed to the good way, and today, I guess you could say it's kind of both, although I honestly view the internet as quite evil, at least when it comes to children and adults too, but I'm focusing on children. So I thought, I want to do something, or try. I just don't want to sit here and breathe air. I'm a firm believer that if you can do something in life, you're blessed, you're walking around, you're fairly healthy. I mean, we all do what we can with what we have. At least that's what I would like to think. I thought, because the thought of somebody ever touching my daughter sexually just, I don't know how to describe the feeling. Every parent feels this way. Well, most of them.
I understand completely. Believe me.
It just made me sick.
Yes.
So I hooked up with an organization that had some active ex-FBI. I was taught how to profile, and I started going after internet predators in conjunction with law enforcement. I definitely got some arrested, which I'm glad. And then I progressed a little farther as the years rolled. I was like, which I still do this from time to time, but my court work takes up a lot more time these days, and that's fine. I'm not complaining. I thought, well, I want to do this, but in my own way, I want more of a personal touch, if possible. And that's kind of what led me to becoming a court child advocate. I lived in a small town in Tennessee, which everybody thinks Tennessee is so backward, and I'm here to tell you that is not the case for several reasons, especially when it comes to kids in foster care, but I'll address that in a few minutes. I read the article. I thought, I think I could do that. Let me go through the training and let's see. Well, here I am all these years later, and I took the training. I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I'm still doing it. I will tell you that at times I get immensely frustrated with the system because it's broken and it's on fire. But I am not the type of person to give up. And just, people, and it's hard if you have a heart to do this kind of work to a degree. I can say not to say it doesn't ever bother me. Yes, it does. I have my times where I get extremely angry. And it's a good thing that I'm not a vigilante or something like that. Of course, if I was, I would end up in jail, and what good would that do for me, my family, or any child I could help.
Exactly.
Not a damn thing. So and I lost my train of thought. That was just wonderful.
It happens, especially in this show.
I was thinking too fast ahead. Sorry about that. So anyway, Tennessee had a great training program. They've kind of relaxed it a little now, which I don't agree with that, but I don't live there anymore. I live in the great state of Florida, which Florida's training program, it's there, but it leaves a little to be desired. They're going to give you 2 days, 8 hours a day, and say, here, read this and that and fill that out, and, oh, you ready? Okay, here's your first court case. Go for it.
Wow.
Which is, I'm not saying anybody can't do it, but the thing is you have to, first of all, you have to understand how the court system works. And you have to have good people that will back you up. I have to say, my director I had for CASA, that woman, I'm surprised I didn't drive her to drink, because I asked a ton of questions. She listened to me rant and rave and get upset. She even listened to me cry a few times, because I'm not a crier, but I do cry.
But you're
sometimes.
passionate about
You have a heart.
about it. That's what it is. You know, your heart.
Sometimes
is in
the
it.
cases are just so heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to cry. But I'm like, well, you know, my tears aren't nothing for what this child or children have gone through or are going through. So, you know, okay, I'm going to wipe my face and soldier on. And I will tell you that I'm no miracle worker. Believe me, I wish I was all the time. But I would like to think somehow, some way, I have made a difference in the lives of the children that I've managed to touch. Even I still have some that stay in touch from time to time. I do like hearing from them, and many of them have gone on and grown and become adults and have persevered and bloomed despite the fact of what's happened to them. And there have been others that have not. They have fallen into drug addiction, promiscuity, but these are hallmark symptoms of abused children.
Right.
And I wish more people would do this kind of job. Well, honestly, I'll just say it. I wish more people would give a damn about children. And I know people listening are like, what? Why does she say that? I'll tell you why. In this day and age, our eyes are open, but they're not wide open, because people don't want to think about child abuse. I understand that. I do. It's an ugly, ugly subject. But you know what? That's a big part of the problem. You know, there is that saying, it takes a village. It does take a village, but you know what? The village wants to close its eyes and its ears. They stick their fingers in the ears, la, 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 and close their eyes, and are like, it's not my problem. It's my neighbor's problem. It's my, you know. Well, if you have family, sometimes family gets involved, and other times not. Although I will tell you that I see more family these days, especially grandparents, taking care of their grandchildren due to abuse. But there are other ways people can help other than, you know, by being a court advocate. So, but let me go back to being a court advocate. I'll start with the court system and graduate to the foster system. The court system, like everything else, in theory, should work fairly well. It doesn't. It really doesn't. And I will tell you that it varies state by state as far as, of course, laws. Child protection laws suck. You know, oh, we're going to look out for the children. You know, the children are our greatest asset. Yeah, they are. So, you know, why do our politicians sit on their ass and don't do a damn thing about, you know, toughening laws as when it comes to abuse, much less child sexual abuse? It's because they're politicians. They're not interested in children. They're interested in their social media and the money they can raise.
Or the people
And
that can vote. And keep
I'm
them in
sorry?
power. Or the people that can vote and keep them in power, not the people that can't vote yet because they're kids.
Exactly.
Right.
I'll tell you, you try and teach me how to raise my young, and I turned out all right. I'm going to take you to task.
Oh, I beat my kid with an electrical cord. He grew up just fine.
I got beat with one. I grew up just fine, too.
Exactly. Well, it's generational, you know, and
Exactly.
I hear people, and exactly what you said, I hear people say that, and it makes me, well, makes me angry. Then it makes me wince. It's like, so you're just going to let it roll from generation to generation, really?
Well,
Why? Are you too damn lazy? You don't
Yeah.
give a damn?
If
What
they
is
do
it?
something about it, then they have to admit that it happened to them.
Well, that too, and I understand not wanting to face your past and this kind of thing, but and
And I'm not saying that's the right answer. I'm just saying
Right.
that a lot of the advocacy I've done, that's what I've experienced myself.
Could it be something like maybe people having to look at that would then think of themselves as weak because people see, like, if you have a mental issue, that means you're weak and you're not strong enough to handle it?
Well,
that's
it's-
part of it. My daughter, the mental health counselor, would tell you that because, and you know, no, we can all be strong and we're all weak.
Right.
But I will tell you that if I hadn't had therapy, I don't know where. I would have just been in, you know,
well, you'd
rolling
have been
dysfunction.
self-medicating.
And unfortunately, speaking of therapy, there's so many adults who were abused children and the abused children of today that desperately need therapy, that it could just make such a huge difference in their lives. And they can't get it for a variety of reasons. It's not available. For the most part, I will tell you, the majority of it is money.
Yep.
Yep.
They don't know how to find it. Or, you know, let's kick to drugs here for just a second. You know, as we all know, we're blasted on the news every day about, you know, the pill epidemic and meth and all this other stuff, which, yes, it's a huge problem. And honestly, I don't ever seeing it going away. I wish it could and it would. But the majority of abused children, especially sexually abused children, fall into drugs. And it's because they're trying to escape either what's happened to their body, of course, their mind, which, you know, I don't want to think about this. I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. I do. But sometimes you have to face that pain head on, look it in the face, and say, I'm going to smack you down because I want a better life for myself, much less if you have children, because if you can learn to deal with that, or the best you can, with good coping mechanisms, you're going to be an all-around better person, much less a better parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, you know,
Exactly.
et cetera.
Well, then there's the most heinous part for me, which is the children are made to feel it's their fault. That
You're right.
they made the pedophile act the way they acted. And that biblically they're going to be damned now because it's their fault. In paranormal, I've encountered more than my share of children that have been afraid to go to the light because they were afraid they were going to wind up being judged and for their sins, quote unquote, and put back with their abuser for eternity. So there's a lot of reasons why it's pervasive. But we're over a half hour into the show, April, and you've actually been successful in shutting me up probably longer than I've shut up in the run of the show so far. We are going to have to take a quick break. Can you stay with us?
Of course.
Great.
We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Itzy Sweeney of New Morning Holistic Health Services, and you are tuned in to Glenda's Dragon's Den, where the wild and untamed meet on Wild FM.
Are you an active stock market investor? Well, then you know these three key words: buy, sell, hold. Those three magic words can make or lose you money in the stock market. What if we can show you a time-tested tool that's been helping stock market investors succeed for over 30 years? It's called VectorVest, an amazing system designed to make smart investing easy. The VectorVest system analyzes, sorts, and ranks over 19,000 stocks every day and tells you when to buy, what to buy, and when to sell any stock to maximize your profits in less than 10 minutes a day. And if you call right now, you can test drive our amazing VectorVest system risk-free for 30 days for just $9.95.
800-958-0341. 800-958-0341. 800-958-0341. That's 800-958-0341.
If you're struggling to pay or haven't been making your student loan payments, listen carefully to this urgent alert. Have you been out of school for 10 or more years and you're still making your student loan payments? Are your student loans past due or even in default? Can't go back to school because of an old student loan problem? We can help you if you qualify. Your student loans can be taken out of default. We can stop the wage garnishments, stop the collection calls, and stop the seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and see if we can help you reduce your student loan payments. One quick 10-minute call could solve them right now. So call the Student Loan Helpline now. 800-731-7534, 800-731-7534, 800-731-7534, 800-731-7534. This is a fee-based document preparation service to help you access free government programs. Call for complete details, not available in all states.
If you or someone you love suffers from drug or alcohol addiction, now is the time to utilize your private health insurance PPO plan to receive up to $30,000 or more in substance abuse benefits so that you have low or no out-of-pocket costs. We quickly help you verify your health insurance coverage amounts for substance abuse treatment so you can prepare for immediate admittance to a medical detox or residential rehab treatment center now. Select from locations nationwide while receiving up to $30,000 or more in coverage through your private health insurance PPO plan if eligible. We are the National Treatment Network, the premier matching service available 24/7. We help you use your PPO private health insurance with low or no out-of-pocket costs.
Call now, 800-961-2480. 800-961-2480. 800-961-2480. 800-961-2480. That's 800-961-2480.
I'm Liza Hotchkiss. And I'm Johnny Hotchkiss, and we are Core Phenomena Research. And you're listening to Glenda's Dragon's Den on Wild FM.
Hi, welcome back. This is Glenda from Glenda's Dragon's Den. Just wanted to, again, make sure everybody knows this is an episode with sensitive subject matter in a lot of detail. We do have special guest April Butler, who is a child advocate, guardian ad litem, and we are discussing the dangers that children face today, well, have faced for a long time, but more so today as far as abuse. Hi, April. Still with us?
Hi, Glenda. Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. Um, we were talking before about what kind of work you did with the FBI and all that.
Right.
I did it because of how short I am and how skinny I used to be. I did it when there was no internet and I would be set up in person. I would answer ads in the newspaper and it would be meet up in a place that was overloaded with officers all over the place. And all I needed to do was just get them into the back room. And once I got into the back room, they would take over, which was a lot more dangerous than, doing it on the internet and digging them out. But I
agree.
applaud you. I applaud you because that's a hard thing to do because you really want to kill them. When they talk about all the stuff that they want to do and the way they do it, you really, really have to hold yourself back and basically, bite your tongue, so to speak.
Which is not to take anything away from what you do today,
No.
going to the various residences and doing the on-site inspections and having to confront people and manage your anger face-to-face right there in the den of whatever horror you're walking into.
No, I've had people, well, how can you do this? I said, honestly, it's hard for me to describe. All I can say is I have a place in my head that's where I go when I have to, and I see the situation as, I don't know how to put it. Filter is not the right word. I guess a place of determination. And while I'm there, I'm always very professional. And there's been quite a few times where it took a lot for me just not to absolutely get in somebody's face. And I'm like, this, I can't do this. This isn't
In the best interest of the child.
right, which that's my role is the best interest of the child. Now, we would like to think that the court system, DCS, which is related to foster care, would do the same. And I will tell you, I have been fortunate enough to work with several good judges. I like them. To a degree, their hands were tied by state law, but there are 4 that I remember, 2 that I work with now, that genuinely care about children, and they, as I like to say, they hold their feet to the fire, which is what I do. A lot of child advocates will be intimidated and swayed by DCS.
Right.
I've never been one of those. I never will be. I'm not going to toe the party line, so to speak. I try to be very fair and objective, and I do believe I accomplish that. I have had courts try to send children back home, and there's been quite a few that I've managed to prevent from being sent back home because to be a child advocate, a good one, you have to be a bit of a private detective. And I'm not saying I'm the best by any stretch, but I'm pretty decent at finding out information. And I'll put this out there for anybody that's listening. You better watch that social media, people, because you think it's locked down? Not necessarily. And believe me when I tell you, especially in today's world, it can and will be used against you in a court of law.
Yep.
Because I've done it. I've had to do it. They come across all sweetness and light in court and, oh, yes, I'm going to my parenting classes, and I'm passing my drug tests. Drug tests can be fooled, but but yet take a good look at their social media. Sometimes they're good at putting on a good act. Oh, the court system has taken my child away, and it's not my fault, and they're just screwing me over, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, then how did your children end up in the court system to begin with? That was your fault, not the court system. Okay, so while we're on the subject of foster care, now wait a minute, I got ahead of myself there just for a second. There are good and bad people in every profession. Yes. Whether you're a waitress, you're a cop, you're a DCS worker, you're a child advocate, you're an insurance salesman, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer. Because people like to stereotype. Is our system, the court system and the foster care system, broken? Yes, it is. That does not mean it fails every child. Does it fail the majority? My opinion, yes, it does. I'm going to throw out a few facts and figures, although I will tell you straight up, I believe there's more than what I'm going to tell you.
We understand when you throw out facts and figures, you have to go with what's been reported. And I think everyone in this studio and you understand that the underreporting is as bad as people being able to engage the subject to begin with, because they don't want to be thought of as someone who was abused. So,
true.
And I've worked in a property management office, so I know firsthand how the game is played for some of these types of people. Like when to clean up the house to make it look nice when you know that they're going to be coming over for a visit.
Right. Which I do make announced visits, but I also do my own personal term for that is what I call a drive-by. And am I just driving by? Oh, no. I'm going to drop in when you least expect it. And if you try to keep me out, that's a big red flag.
Right.
Especially because most child court cases, it depends on the case, honestly. I've had some that were a few months, but most of them run a year to 2 years. So, I get to know them rather well. They get to know me rather well. I do have, I did have a case last year where, and I can, before anybody gets all weird about this, I do not mention names, where they are, anything like this. I can give blanket statements legally, and that's exactly what I'll do. I had a case where a young child was taken. The mother and the father both were drug users. The mother, I will tell you, she was something else because she was 29. Baby's father was 18. And, he's 18, he's an adult. Okay. He was manipulated to a degree, and I don't want to get crude, but he was, let's just say that boy was all over that, and that's how she got him. I guess he had never had a steady girlfriend before or whatever, and he was in love with whatever that was.
Right.
So he was willing to pretty much do anything. Now the child was not physically abused. She was a bit neglected.
Right.
And there is a difference. Is it both wrong? Yes. But they got into a fist fight with her holding the child. He didn't hit the child, and she didn't hit the child, but they hit each other.
Oh.
And the neighbors saw it, called the law, and that's how the child was taken. And the child was placed with his mother. Okay. Which that child is now in the adoption process to be adopted by the grandmother, and that will happen here shortly. So that's a good thing. But the mother, she flat refused to talk to me. She wasn't going to see me. She wasn't going to talk to me. Nothing. I'm like, you really need to do this? No, I don't have to. Yes, you're, compelled by the court. No. They, of course, DCS drug tested her. She failed. Here in Florida, they will immediately offer to send you to rehab. She went. She lasted 2 days. Got out. Went back to her little drug ways. He stayed away from her for a while.
Right.
Then fell right back into that. He would answer the phone, and he, I'm fine. Okay, are you passing your drug test? Even though I knew this, but I wanted to hear him say it. Parenting classes now. I don't have transportation. Okay. Is there a way we can help you with that? Whether it's a bus pass. At the moment, my mind is blanking out, but there's a service here. It's kind of like a driver service. It's run by volunteers, but it's people that will help take people to doctors' offices, parenting classes, things like this. So, no, I don't need no help, but I'm going to get her back. Okay, well, just so you know, every time you refuse this, it's documented. I've become a whiz at documentation. And the same thing with her. I said every time you refuse. So she just got to the point where she wouldn't answer the phone. I'm like, Or I'd go knock on the door. No, not answering the door. But I know you're there because I can see you through the window.
Yeah, they're moving the blinds around like they don't think that you're looking.
I even made up a little sign. Okay, I do have a rather wicked sense of humor. And I would walk up to the window, and I would stick the sign up there, and it was like, I can see you. and she, would just ignore me, and actually I wanted to write something else on there, but I didn't. Anyway.
Yeah.
So we danced that dance for about a year. And then one day she's like, screw it, I've had enough. She packed up her stuff, and off she went to another state. Court hearings were still proceeding. She wasn't showing up. I mean, it was to the point where her own lawyer, who was hired by the state, let me put that out there, not her, kind of threw up his hands. It's like, I don't know what to tell you, I can't get a hold of her either. So, and of course, she was smart enough to realize that being out of state, honestly, there wasn't a whole lot that could be done. But she was showing her true colors, which she didn't want that child. And she had 2 other children by 2 other men.
Right.
And those 2 had been taken as well before this child. So, and that's an unfortunate pattern I see, but I'll discuss that in a minute.
Well, we are habituative animals.
There are roughly 450,000 children in the United States in foster care.
Wow.
100,000 of them are up for adoption.
Wow.
Roughly 25,000 age out every year. Now, the age out, truthfully, depends upon the state. It's either 18 or 21. The majority of foster children are very ill-prepared to age out, which is sad because it's just another, and I can hear people thinking in their head, well, foster parents, I've met some absolutely wonderful foster parents in my life that they didn't do it for money. And I'm here to tell you, unless they have really found an exceptionally good way to work the system. Most foster parents are not in it for the money. I mean, they're not being paid, you know, $2,000 or $3,000 a kid a month.
Right.
And there seems to be a misconception of that. Again, it all depends upon the state. Some states give more than others. Relative caregivers, which are exactly what it says, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle,
Yeah.
they tend to get less, believe it or not, than actual foster families, which I don't quite understand that.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're relatives? Well, okay, but especially grandparents who are older and retired, they're on fixed incomes.
Yes. They need the money just as anybody else to raise that child.
And I will say for Florida, Florida, you know, does provide Medicaid. They will. All right, here I have a case right now that's active. 2 little girls, 3 and 4, living with their grandparents. They've been there for 3 years.
Wow.
The grandparents are 70 and 72. Luckily, they are both in good health. These 2 are a force to be reckoned with because they are just wonderful grandparents. The oldest child was born drug addicted.
Wow.
So she does have some issues. She has a lot of therapies she goes to. Believe me when I tell you, Grandma gets her there. She works with her, but both children are treated the same. And they should have started adoption a year ago, and the system has drug its feet, mostly on the child advocate side, not me, the Guardian Ad Litem office. And yeah, I just said that because it's the truth. Like I said earlier, you have the good and bad, and it's real easy to let these kids languish in the system. My point is okay, you got the case. All right, you know, it's progressed through up until this point.
Right.
Parental rights have been terminated long ago. So why are you just going to let it languish? Get it wrapped up, get these kids adopted, and unfortunately, let's get on to the next one because there's going to be the next, and the next.
Yeah.
Not only that, this way the grandparents actually can feel secure.
Exactly, because they worry because I could tell you, say if Grandpa has a heart attack and dies, or he has a stroke and is incapacitated, they will take those children if they are not adopted. And where are they going to go? The foster system. And they have tried so very hard to keep them out of the foster system, and they are just one of thousands of grandparents that are, like I alluded at the very beginning of the show, my grandmother did it with me, but back then we didn't have the foster care system that we have today. And, you know, different laws have been enacted since then.
Right.
So she didn't really ever have to worry about me being taken from her, at least as far as I know anyway.
As long as she stayed alive.
It's
April,
quite different.
Would it be of any consequence if the grandparents themselves pushed the system to resolve it?
Well, this particular grandmother, she has, like I said, I will give her credit. She makes phone calls. She keeps meticulous records. And I've seen them. She has just told me that, but I have to say they are probably some of the most honest people I've ever met. And it's just because they have their own moral code, and they love their granddaughters, and they want the best for them. At this point in time, it's them. They are trying to come up with a plan that when the time comes, as they get older, and like I said, they're in their early 70s, that they can find a family that they trust to adopt the girls and raise them on their own.
Right.
So far, they had a family that agreed to do this. The family seemed very loving and nurturing and caring and wanted these girls, and they put them, I mean, the grandparents have them, but they brought them into their lives. I mean, you know, every weekend, you know, they were getting together with them, you know, letting the girls get to know them, etc.
Right.
And one day they just decided, no, we're not going to do this. Really? You've been leading these people on, much less these two little girls who've developed an attachment to them for a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you just quit? I mean, it wasn't like there was, you know, a health issue or something like that. Grandma says she thinks that they got to thinking about it for a while and was like, wow, you know, we have a 3- and 4-year-old here, and, you know, in 10 years, they're going to be 13, 14. So that might put a crimp in our lifestyle. Well, didn't you think about that before you opened your mouth? I mean, seriously. Okay, but I don't want to, you know, in other words, I guess I'm put up or shut up. I mean, you know, and that's another thing about children. People love to tell children things, and they don't follow through, which absolutely pisses me off. But Florida, the state of Florida, spent $4.3 billion on foster care last year.
Wow.
That is staggering.
Wow.
And I, you know, like I said, I can't quote every state, but you can bet it's in the billions for every state. And it's like a hamster on a wheel. It just runs and runs and runs in the same direction, around and around, and not a whole lot gets done unless you fall off the wheel, you know? And it's just pathetic, you know. And can I come up with a magic solution? No. I have a couple of ideas. Believe me, when I can't sleep at night and sit here and think about all this stuff and it runs through my head, the first thing I would say is please don't have any children unless you're going to love and take care of them. Now, I know pregnancy can happen accidentally, even with prevention.
Right.
My response to that is use 2 different methods, if that's what it takes. If you find yourself pregnant, or your girlfriend's pregnant, or your wife, whatever, and the two of you really aren't really sure you want to be parents, and here we are adding to the system, but please give them up for adoption, because there are tons of people that want to adopt children, babies and children, and therein lies another problem with that, and we all go back to money, because it's very expensive to adopt a child, which that hinders most people, honestly. Now, if your child's in the system in the state of Florida, and your rights are taken, and they are placed on what we say the adoption side, the state of Florida will pay for the adoption, which is a great thing. That right there, that's a great thing. I can't agree with that more. I mean, you're already in court. The lawyers are already set.
Right.
I mean, it's not such a big stretch not to, you know, put them on the adoption side. Half of the children in foster care are returned to their parents. And you're thinking, well, what? Why is that? Sometimes Well, I don't know. I take a really hard view, and it's not that I'm such a bitch. Well, maybe it is, but
Sometimes you have to be a bitch to get things done.
But and I understand life circumstances. I do. I understand poverty.
Right.
I understand, to a degree, drug addiction. You do drugs. A lot of it's to kill pain. Some of it's just to experiment.
Right.
But you might be placing yourself in something you can never get out of. A lot of people do break the bonds of drug addiction, and I give them massive kudos.
Yep.
Especially if you do it for your children.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've told several, if you can't or won't even attempt to try to get free, then let your children go, because it's very obvious that you can't get free. Either you're just so far gone, you don't really want to. Now, I do realize that drug addiction is considered a disease.
Right.
I do get that. I'm not saying it's not. But it's like any disease, unless it's incurable.
Right.
It needs to be treated, and you need to seek active treatment if you want your children back.
Exactly.
The state of
even
Florida,
with an
again,
incurable disease, April, you have a choice of rolling over and surrendering your life to the disease, or there's a lot of people right now walking around with chronic debilitating diseases that are determined to live the best life that they can live and fight it every day. So,
I agree.
A lot of it has to do with, I think, the character of the individual, which in the circle of abuse and the cycle of abuse, some of that may have been beaten out of them. So it's
true.
A
Right.
conundrum.
Right.
It is. I mean, it's like I said, I used the hamster on the wheel analogy, which is probably a bad analogy, but it's a circular. It's all circular. If that makes sense. The state of Florida, again, this is where the $43 billion that I spoke about comes in. I mean, we're talking foster care, rehab. Now, Tennessee did not believe in trying to rehabilitate sex offenders. The state of Florida does.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a big issue with that. And I have expressed that to the judge, although I'm well aware, me bitching about it isn't going to, they're going to keep doing it. But, I'd like to make my position clear. Of course, these judges now know who I am and what I stand for. And I think, honestly, they agree with me. But, of course,
They're bound by the law.
They're not going to quite put that out there. I mean, they're bound by law, So I had my very first case I had when I came to Florida. And by talking about this is going to tend to lead me in another direction because I just took a gander at the time. Anyway, 3 children, a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and an 11-year-old. Live with their mother. Their mother and father were divorced by the time I came around.
Okay.
Their mother had been married before, had 2 children who, I never met the 2 girls, but they did live with, I'll call them the little trio.
Okay.
Anyway, short version is the father, people like to use the word molested because that's a polite word, which, okay, let's call it for what it is. It's called rape.
Yep.
He raped both of the daughters. I didn't know the specifics of his criminal case because it was several years old. I was in, of course, as their child advocate, but he ended up on probation, and he had to go to his sex offender therapy once a week, which he had been doing. Okay, well, he, I guess you might say, laid low for a bit, and he started exhibiting grooming behaviors with his 3 children. And the mother was trying to fight him in court. He was just being an asshole because he wanted her back. He didn't care about them kids. He wanted her, and he figured the best way to get at her was through those kids. So, you know, let's see if I can get custody of them just to, you know, get back at her, because she'll have to come back to me because I have them. Well, he didn't get custody, okay, and the children were very, especially the 15-year-old, who was a girl, was very honest about what he was trying to do. He started out very subtle. I asked her bluntly. She assured me that he did not rape her or the 12-year-old, who's a girl. She was not sure about the 11-year-old, who's a boy.
Right.
He denied it, which is very common. But anyway, let me get back to this guy. He wouldn't talk to me either, for the most part. We conversed only when we came together in court. He was a very big guy. He was like 6'5", 350 pounds, and he would try to use that, and he just had a very dark personality, and he could be very intimidating. He intimidated his kids. He intimidated his ex-wife. Pretty much anybody, well, not the judge, but pretty much anybody he came in contact with me, he tried that with me. I said, don't even. I said, I'm not afraid of you in any way, shape, or form. I said, you ever lay a hand on me? I said, all I'm going to tell you is God have mercy, and you can figure that out on your own. And he's like, okay, you know. So then he shut up. He just wouldn't talk to me. And he would make his visits, and, I mean, it came down to the point where we had orders of protection pulled on the children, you know, that he couldn't call them, he couldn't email them, he better not show up at school.
Right.
He couldn't even knock on the front door, which is how it should have been. All 3 children went into therapy, and because it had actually been in the system before I got there, which it had,
right.
The other guardian seemed to favor the father for some bizarre reason. I have no idea why. And I'm like, seriously? You know what this man did, and you know what he's trying to do, and you want him to have access to his children? Oh, hell no. I mean, no, because, you know, the judge here he gets the written reports.
Right.
But we will also speak in the courtroom, and he asked my opinion right in front of him, and I told him, I said, this man does not need to be anywhere near his children, much less anybody else's children. And I said, I know about his sex offender therapy. I said, it won't work. It never does.
Right.
I said, in my opinion. Because it is court. It's being transcribed. It is public record and legal record, so I do have to, I can say what I feel, but I have to measure the response.
Right. You have to keep saying it,
and
in my opinion.
You know, I understand. Yeah. So it worked out in the end. They closed the case. The mother moved across the county line, which means even if he did get frisky and figure he's going to violate the protection orders, The minute he crossed the county line, all she had to do was call the sheriff because he was out of jurisdiction, because he couldn't leave the county, supposedly. And
Is that
I
because he
heard
was a
from
registered
them,
sex offender?
and they're doing well, which...
Was that because he was a registered sex offender, April?
Yes, he was a registered sex offender. Which, my point is, why wasn't he in jail? You get, you being a subjective term, get more time for child pornography than you do the actual rape of a child. Figure that out. Yes, child pornography is evil, and I'm going down that road here in just a minute. But the rape of a child is even worse. And I read, of course, daily, all kinds of manner, usually legal, pertaining to children.
Right.
There was one that I read the other day. This child was 4 years old. He raped this child. He got probation.
Yep.
Nothing. No, nothing. And I mean...
April, it's not just like in Florida. It's all over the United
Exactly.
States.
This actually, what the article was out of Illinois or something. I can't remember. No, it's not.
Yeah, I worked
Florida.
as a paralegal in New Jersey, and believe me, it's terrible.
It's worldwide.
Yep.
If you want the truth. Children are very disposable, sadly. They always have been.
We're in
truthfully,
a
since the dawn of time.
society. We're in a society that is attempting to make adult women second-class citizens. So,
Very true.
if the society succeeds, and it pretty much already has succeeded to the point where it's just a matter of time before states file motions against the Supreme Court, and the predator-in-chief makes that, through his nominations to the Supreme Court, a done deal. But here we go. We are going to let people sit with that for a moment. We have to take a break. You staying with us, April?
Yes, I most certainly am.
And then we'll answer a question that's in chat that just somebody was looking for an explanation of a term. What is grooming, subtle grooming? We'll be right back at Glenda's Dragon's Den.
Anytime you want to start, that'd be great. It's okay, guys. I got it. Yeah, I got it.
Looking for high-speed internet where you live but are out of reach of cable and fiber options? Look no further. High-speed internet is now available in your area as your local authorized HughesNet retailer, Whole Home Connect, makes it easy to get the high-speed internet you need with blazing fast speeds, unlimited data with no hard data limits, with built-in Wi-Fi for as little as $2 a day. Act now and for a limited time, get free standard installation and free equipment with HughesNet from Whole Home Connect. You'll enjoy internet service that lets you do more of everything you want to do online, like shopping, surfing, and staying in touch. Call Whole Home Connect and see for yourself why HughesNet is America's #1 choice for satellite internet.
800-696-2871. 800-696-2871. 800-696-2871. That's 800-696-2871.
When I need a cut, I go to Diamond Cuts. Ain't no half cutting there. Oh, yeah. Woo, man, at Diamond Cuts, their barbers got the freshest styles. Anything from fades, Caesars, high tops, blowouts, shape-up, tape-ups, and much more. Their barbers can cut men, women, children, young and old. Stop by Diamond Cut at 144 Pocono Boulevard in Mount Pocono, PA. Or just call at 570-216-4912. Ain't no half cutting there, baby paw. Yo, Stan, yo, Ant, yo, Black, yo, Light Skin, yo, E, where y'all at?
Have you written a book? You can become a published author with Dorrance Publishing, the nation's oldest publishing services company. Countless authors have trusted Dorrance for nearly 100 years to bring their book to the market. Our professional team will edit your text, design your book pages, and create an appealing, eye-catching custom cover. Plus, our authors benefit from a custom book promotion marketing campaign that makes your book available where people buy books, like Amazon and brick-and-mortar bookstores. So make this free call right now to claim your free author's guide to publishing. Don't wait another day. Take one step closer to realizing your dream of becoming a published author and seeing your name in print. You've already written a book, so the next thing to do is make this free call right now to Dorrance Publishing and get your free guide to publishing. Call right now.
800-847-1362. 800-847-1362. That's 800-847-1362.
Are you an active stock market investor? Well, then you know these three key words: buy, sell, hold. Those three magic words can make or lose you money in the stock market. What if we can show you a time-tested tool that's been helping stock market investors succeed for over 30 years? It's called VectorVest, an amazing system designed to make smart investing easy. The VectorVest system analyzes, sorts, and ranks over 19,000 stocks every day and tells you when to buy, what to buy, and when to sell any stock to maximize your profits in less than 10 minutes a day. And if you call right now, you can test drive our amazing VectorVest system risk-free for 30 days for just $9.95.
800-958-0341. 800-958-0341. 800-958-0341. That's 800-958-0341.
If you or someone you love suffers from drug or alcohol addiction, now is the time to utilize your private health insurance PPO plan to receive up to $30,000 or more in substance abuse benefits so that you have low or no out-of-pocket costs. We quickly help you verify your health insurance coverage amounts for substance abuse treatment so you can prepare for immediate admittance to a medical detox or residential rehab treatment center now. Select from locations nationwide while receiving up to $30,000 or more in coverage through your private health insurance PPO plan if eligible. We are the National Treatment Network, the premier matching service available 24/7. We help you use your PPO private health insurance with low or no out-of-pocket costs.
Call now. 800-961-2480. 800-961-2480. 800-961-2480. 800-961-2480.
Hi, this is Andrea Perrin. You're listening to Glenda's Dragon's Den, where everything is wild and untamed.
Welcome back to Glenda's Dragon's Den. This is Glenda, your host. I just want to go over today's discussion contains sensitive subject matter. Just want to make everybody aware of that. And we're discussing child abuse and in very detailed subjects and very detailed altogether.
Specifics.
Yeah, that's it.
Pacifics.
How you doing, babe?
I'm good. How you doing?
All right. You wanted to say something?
Oh, I always want to say something. Are
I
you new?
know. This is the show, the best. Thank you, April. So far, he's been very quiet.
Yeah, well, that fantasy's about to
maybe
end
I've
right
talked
now.
too much.
Yeah, before I bring you back, April, I just want to let our listeners know that we do have a way for you to interface directly with Glenda. If you go to glendasdragonsden.com, if you have any questions about this show, about the paranormal, about your own personal life, Glenda can help you with all of those things. There's a button, Glenda's Magical Creations. If you toggle that button at glendasdragonsden.com, that will put you directly in touch with Glenda, as well as give you a bit of a background on some of the magical things that she is capable of doing. Also, you'll find the button for Glenda's CBD oil page. The company is CTFO. That's a leading company. I've mentioned before that Glenda lives day to day with tremendous chronic pain. And once again, I can guarantee you that she would not be here today if she wasn't using the CBD oil products from CTFO. Also, I found it interesting that the phrase came up earlier. There's the force to be reckoned with button. That's for people who want to walk outside with a little more confidence. That contains all of the products that are non-lethal extras that you can carry on your person to protect yourself. Some of them are even capable of being taken on board an airplane in case you're flying to another location that you may not be too familiar with. So that is the force to be reckoned with button. And lastly, there's Glenda's doTERRA button for aromatherapy products and their dispensers and other conciliatory items to help you enjoy those in case this show creates a little bit more anxiety in you than you are comfortable with, not to mention your day-to-day. And April, we were talking during the break, and instead of rushing the other things we were talking about, like the dark web, we would like to do that in a future show because when you're done with what you wanted to say, we also have some questions. I think Glenda has one specific question, used the word grooming. And of course, there are people that don't necessarily know what that is, so that's a question that Glenda's going to share with you. But we also would like you to devote some time in this show to helping people who may be in a situation where their partner is being inappropriate with their children. And
not just a partner. It could be any family member. It could be a neighbor. It could be. It usually is somebody that they know.
No, I would say I like that idea, and I definitely would like to touch on that. And so I will lead into that with this.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the children who are sexually abused, yes, it does happen within the family.
Yep.
That would be incest.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Let's say a lot of people don't want to think about that. I hate to say it's common, a lot more common than people think.
Yep.
But for time constraints, I will tell you that the majority of children are abused by a partner and not a parent. I see women and some men, but I will say mostly women, who go through boyfriends like they're water. I understand the need to be loved. I understand the need not to be alone.
Right.
But that being said, you had those children. They are yours. You are the front line of defense for whatever happens to them. Yes, you can't always prevent what happens to them, but you don't just bring men, I'm going to use the term men, but women as well,
Right.
willy-nilly into your children's lives for a variety of reasons. First of all, you know, just some guy you got the hots for, you've known a few months. Oh, well, we'll move in together.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is poverty related, truthfully. I need, you know, I need help with my kids, or maybe if I hook up with this guy, he'll bring more money into the household, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I get that too. Who the hell wants to be poor? But I will tell you, it's better to be poor and your children protected, and they grow up really fast, whether you want to believe that or not.
Yes,
So you got time to go screw off when they're grown, all right? I'm just going to say it, because I see so much of this, it really ticks me off. It's like, how can you bring, man after man or woman after woman into your child's life? I mean, not as a protective measure, yes, but also for the child, because especially if a child hasn't had the emotional support and the love that they need, they're going to reach for it.
Right.
However they can get it.
And what you haven't addressed, April, is the percentage of partners who come into a woman's life because of the children and to have access to the children, not because they're really interested in that woman. So to that end, just to blow the listeners' minds, how fast can someone groom a child for abuse, approximately, in your experience?
First, I would say it depends upon the child, and you have to factor in age.
Mm-hmm.
Younger children, all right, let me say this really quick. Young children do not lie about sexual abuse. And before people go, what? I'm not talking teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different subject on a different day, okay? Right. Young children, unless you yourself have got them watching porn and you're sexually explicit or you're molesting them yourself, they do not know how to articulate what is happening to them or has happened.
So let's give an age range here, since, young children, people may be ignorant as to what age range you're talking about.
Well, there are some older young children that are rather worldly, but usually I will say from the ages 3 to 10, roughly.
So 3-year-old children that have had been violated sexually will try to voice that, and it's a question of whether or not they are encouraged to voice it or pushed off as to how successful they are in being able to voice that. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say so. All right, let me explain what grooming is, and then I will explain some signs to look for with the children.
Thank you.
Okay, grooming, let's see, it's a good way to put this. Grooming is a set of behaviors towards the child, mostly to gain their trust, to seem like the fun person, or, I love you. Love, the concept of love, unfortunately, is often thrown around in the terms of a sexually abusive relationship. Oh, I love you, but I'm doing this to you. This is a form of love. No, it's not. Let's just call it for what it is. It's child rape. It's, and I'm going to say it straight up, there is no cure for pedophilia. None. People say castration. Okay, I don't got a problem with that. But will it stop them?
No.
No. They will Personally, my personal opinion of a appropriate sentence for a child rapist would be: you cut out their tongue, you cut off their hands, you cut off their private parts, and then you sit them in a very tiny cell with the lights on for 24/7, and you bombard them with child porn 24/7. And they're going to lose their fucking mind, excuse me.
But let's just qualify that, because unless you do those things, there's really no way to guarantee that that person isn't going to find a way to continue the behavior, in your opinion, correct?
Yes, well, it's not my opinion, that's fact. They will continue to molest, and if they can't use their penis, they will use objects, their hands, their tongue, whatever they can get their hands on.
Well, let's be clear. It's not a male-only condition.
No, it's not.
So
and
even if people don't have a penis, they can certainly still rape a child.
Exactly. People don't. It's becoming more common knowledge, I'll say that. People don't want to think of women that could be predators because, women are supposed to be the nurturers. Right. We're supposed to be the earth mothers. Well, there's a lot of women that aren't. There seems to be, I don't really want to give a time frame, I'll say in the past few years, I think the number of women predators has probably risen slightly, but honestly, I think it's become more out in the open, and people are starting to realize that women can indeed be predators. Now, and this would be another show on a different day. I'm not necessarily talking about, the 30-year-old school teacher that has a sexual relationship with a 16-year-old boy.
Right.
Now, is that right? No. Is she still a predator? Yes. I'm sticking mostly with younger children here.
And this is from personal experience as a caseworker, to a large extent, as well as your own research.
Yes, as a caseworker, as a predator hunter, and my own research. Because I have discussed these things with psychiatrists, psychologists, even my own daughter, who at this point has only been practicing for 2 years, so her scope is limited, I'll say that. But she also has child advocate experience.
And judges.
And judges. The judges in Tennessee, I had a little more open access to than the two here, where I could actually stop by their office as long as I didn't interrupt them or take up too much of their time. And we have discussed a lot. I've learned a lot from them, I will say that. All right, let me get to grooming. There are, when I start mentioning behaviors, people sometimes, how can I put this, overthink it a bit. If say you have a boyfriend and you're looking at his behaviors towards your children, first of all, see how long this has taken to develop, see how often it has happened in the past or is happening now. It can be very subtle in the beginning, and then it tends to magnify over the course of time. Now, and I'm going to throw a statistic out on this, and people's mouths fall open and they say I'm lying, and I'm not. If you have a hardcore predator in your child's midst, whether it's, all right, no, I don't want to say that yet. I'll be sidetracking myself. An uncaught predator, depending on how often they desire to rape a child and how they place themselves in access to children, can rape 300 to 500 children over the course of a lifetime.
And again, this is documentation. This isn't speculation.
This is true. This is from interviews with sexual predators, court cases, etc. Now, 500 is on the high end. They would have to be extremely prolific. But if you think that they just molest 4 or 5 here and there, and okay, they did it, they got their rocks off, it's all good.
Right.
No. Pedophilia
And again, I
is,
just want to say we're not advocating that 4 and 5 is acceptable.
Exactly. Well, not one child
Right.
is acceptable.
Right. I just want to be clear
I'm here
because
to
people are
tell
going to
you,
call us
they
on
treat children like potato chips or chocolate. Think of something, whether it's food, it's the internet, alcohol, drugs. You could use gambling. You could use anything. Think of something that really is a trigger for someone, or it makes them just feel so good that they have to keep indulging in the behavior. Same thing for a pedophile.
So what behaviors should people be looking for, April?
Okay, first of all, you do need to warn your children about strangers to a degree. There are children that are taken, obviously,
Right.
raped and killed by strangers. But the major threat comes from the people around your children, your neighbors, your relatives, your preacher, your coaches, your teachers. And they all have positions of trust, which that's what pedophiles do.
Right.
They put themselves in trust positions to give them easy access to children.
They also
and
have
they
positions
come
of
across
power.
very, people like to look at pictures and go, oh, dear God, they don't look like a molester, a rapist. Well, of course not. And most don't. It's not Chester, the child molester, in the dirty raincoat sitting on the bench kind of thing. It's not.
I'm sorry, I know that's
such
not
an
funny,
old
but
stereotype. It's ridiculous.
Right.
But that's what people think. That's because they've been conditioned. Okay. It's one thing to be polite, nice to a kid. Hopefully most adults would try to do that. Set a good example.
Right.
If they start showing a little too much interest in your child, ask a lot of questions, a lot of personal questions. They want to see them a lot under the guise of soccer practice.
Right.
Hi, I'm your neighbor. Can you help me do yard work every week? I'm the teacher. They've been acting up. They need to stay after school. Now, I'm not saying every time this happens, this is what, your child is being groomed, okay? They give gifts. Usually, say the child has a certain video game that they like.
Right.
Okay. Well, they'll start giving gifts of video games. Can I, I really love Disney movies. The child loves Disney movies. Well, hey, I want to go see this Disney movie. Is it okay if I take little Johnny with me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I don't want to have to go by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just want to add that was a real challenge for me because there were a lot of Disney movies I wanted to see, and I had to find a date that wanted to go see them with me because whether I was sitting there alone or even sitting there with a child, I realized that was problematic for a whole bunch of reasons. So, I personally am aware that is a very strong potential for spotting a predator.
True. Let's see. What else? Is it grooming,
Let me just say this.
gifts?
What is the fastest that a partner, let's say, can groom a child if they're a predator to being sexually active, in your opinion or in your experience? Because I'm aware it can happen very quickly. So just give me an idea, based on your actual background. Would you say is a fast average, and what age would be most susceptible? Can you do that for me?
Let's see. Most age to be susceptible, I would say 3 to 12, roughly. Depending on the partner, it can happen quickly, or it can take time.
Right, but I'm looking at quickly. What would you say quickly looks like if it were happening quickly? Because I realize it's all dependent on the child, but I want people to be aware of just how freaking fast this can happen.
All right. For example, they don't respect boundaries or listen when the child tells them no. They engage in unwanted touching. Now, I'm not talking like, a quick little hug, but especially if this is a new type of relationship, you shouldn't be trying to force a child so quickly to either you cross their boundaries or for them to touch you either appropriately or inappropriately. Also, a lot of time spent alone with the child.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand, say, maybe he works during the day, mom works at night. He's taking care of the children at night while she works. You can't oversee that. Expressing an unusual interest in the child's sexual development, such as, oh, I noticed, little Janie's got some cute little breasts going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you hear that and you cringe. Any normal person would, of course. But a lot of gifts, unexpected gifts, not just the needs, the physical needs, such as food, clothes that they need. It could be expensive things that are given quickly. That kind of razzle-dazzles the child, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But let me be a little more specific because I don't think I've communicated my question effectively. We've identified the ages 3 to 12 as being the ages where they'll probably be the most susceptible and where they won't lie if something does occur. But in that age range, and I realize that there are variables like emotional IQ and all of that come into play, but how fast could a well-trained predator groom a child into inappropriate sexual behavior, in your opinion, on a fast track?
It could start to happen within a couple of weeks.
And that's what I was looking for. So say 20 hours of contact?
Yes, and, like I said, you're looking at the variables. And
Right.
the children that are
But I'm looking
most at
to
risk.
head off a situation where, let's say the child's had 20 hours of interface with a partner, and the child comes to the mother and says, Mommy, something's not right. And others, you've only known him for 2 weeks. It can happen in 2 weeks.
Right.
Yes. And if that child comes to you and says anything, you need to believe them. And you need, I see more enablers, which this pisses me off too. In other words, the short version of my statement is they're willing to sacrifice their child for whatever happens, for whatever they get out of it, whether it's drugs, it's money, it's a sense of security, whatever they think they need.
Or even an illusion of self-worth.
True. And people go, oh, people don't do that, or how can they do that? Well, get outraged because it's done all the time. And it will continue to be done.
Yep.
I do want to, I went over the grooming. I'm sorry, I'm walking by, something's making noise.
That sounds like you're at a factory.
I'm going to quickly go through some grooming behavior, one right after another, just so people can hear me say it. Okay. They do not respect boundaries or listen when someone or the child says no.
So that could be the partner or the child.
Correct. Engages in touching the child that the child or the parents have indicated is unwanted. This can be anything from, pats on the back, which seem not threatening.
Right.
A lot of times they're not. But it can be, forced hugs, forced sitting on the lap, walking in while the child is bathing or going to the bathroom. Tries to be the child's friend instead of being the adult. Take a good look at who they surround themselves with other than, say, your child. Age-appropriate relationships.
Right.
You see a lot of cultivation of young relationships, that's a red flag. Talks with children about their personal problems or relationships. Now, it's a little different to a degree if the child comes to them, because you have to realize what they're doing is they're cultivating trust.
Right.
Because that's what they want. Because when they go full active and rape the child, do you think that they want that child to tell anyone? No. And they have to cultivate the trust relationship with the child and with the partner or relative. Like I said before, spends a lot of time alone with the children outside of their active role, such as, step-parent, boyfriend, girlfriend.
Right.
Expresses unusual interest in the child's sexual development. I brought that up. I brought up the gifts. And then, of course, a lot of one-on-one time spent with the child. Now, excuse me, that can be alone time, or that can be, mom's cleaning the house, making dinner, etc. A lot of time spent in the video world, so to speak. Actually, that's one good way because, you know, a lot of children like video games, you know, online games,
Right.
same thing. And that's another good way. Now, I'm not saying everybody who plays games, you know, with their partner's children is molesting them. I mean, don't, you know, but these are some very common red flags.
Well, let me ask you a direct question, April.
Sure.
If a partner or a parent starts to wonder whether the partner's dating them or the child, would you say that's a red flag?
I would say that's one big ass red flag.
Yep.
And
Because I don't care
Pay
how
attention.
a partner explains that. You know, a lot of people will just sort of say, well, that's my own ego or whatever. But no, if that question ever comes to your mind, you might need another Timmy.
exactly. And you even get any type of, you know, I'm a big believer in intuition.
Yep.
Sometimes it does have to be cultivated a little. This is true. That's another story on a different day as well.
Mm-hmm.
But rely on that intuition. And it starts going off, there's a damn good reason, and you better pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Don't shut it down.
And talk to your child about it. And I'm
talk
not
to your
saying yes
child.
directly.
Cultivate a relationship with your child. Yes,
Exactly.
you have to be a parent,
Right.
okay? You can't be their friend, even though people try way too hard with that one. But you can cultivate an open relationship with your child. And what I mean by that is yes, they know you're a parent,
Mm-hmm.
but they can come to you and they can talk to you, and whether it's about something simple like they had a bad day at school,
Right.
or they didn't make the goal on the soccer team. You know, start with things like that because that fosters open communication. And if your child comes to you, whether it's of a sexual nature or anything, you know, Mom, I stole a sucker from the store. Okay, your first reaction is to get angry.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. If you're going to get that angry in the heat of the moment to where you can't think straight, then tell your child that I'm angry at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I
Not
need
at
a
you,
timeout.
your behavior, but I'm going to step back for a minute.
Yeah,
I'm going to calm
I need
down,
a timeout. That's
and then we're going to discuss it.
right.
Right.
Because if you pop off at them all the time, or you lecture them, or you make them feel bad for them being open and honest with you, what do you think's going to happen? They're not going to talk to you
Nope.
about the little things, much less something horrendous like this. And a predator will make them believe it's their fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's your fault. You were too sexy for me. Or I just love you so much, and this is the way that I show my love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to teach children, and you do it age appropriately, and you don't try to open their little heads and pour it all in at once, because that won't work.
Right.
You know, it has to be done over time, like I said, within cultivating that child-parent relationship that they will come to you, and especially if it's encourage your own children to use their own intuition. They have it. They do.
Right.
It has to be cultivated and educated. But I always say young children, especially young children, are a great judge of character. They see in a different way than we adults do. And they pick up on things spiritually, I believe, a lot more than adults do, because they're not adults. They're not hampered by all the adult stuff, for the lack of a better term.
Because they're still open.
And their self-esteem is not tied to the success of the relationship
Exactly.
necessarily, because there are children that will sacrifice themselves if they believe that their parents' happiness is going to be adversely affected if they tell.
That's very true.
So,
And they will. I mean, especially young children. You know, and they should be, hopefully, greatly attached to their parent or parents, hopefully both parents, but, you know, there are a lot of single parents out there. And they just want to make them happy. Now, when
and
they're
a lot of
teenagers,
times,
it's a different story.
a lot of times they're made to feel that they're responsible for their parents' happiness, either directly or indirectly.
And they're not.
Of
You are
course
responsible for your happiness.
Everyone's
Don't place that
responsible for
burden
their
on
own
your children,
happiness.
for crying out loud. I mean,
Absolutely.
children have enough issues in this world. If you all don't mind, I will do it tomorrow. I would like to maybe place on the Dragon's Den page some helpful links, such as the grooming.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
That way, if I've talked too fast, or, you know, perhaps someone had to walk out of the room or whatever, they can just come and look, you know, and say, oh, okay, you know, this is. And let me say this, because I know we're out of time.
Oh, you're coming back.
Right.
Well,
But
thank you.
she has a point she wants to
Yeah.
make, so let's let her make it.
I'm going to be brutally honest when I say this, you know, and it's going to sound like I don't know what the word is. I'm very passionate about what I do. I hope that that's come across. I'm not the only one.
Right.
There are many out there who are trying to fight child abuse, child sexual abuse. Physical child abuse is horrendous. It is. To inflict pain upon a helpless child, I mean, it's just...
Or trauma. Emotional trauma.
Child sexual abuse just is the notch above this. Aside from, it's more than one notch, aside from the physical aspect of it, and the younger the child, the more physical damage is done.
Right.
Okay? You can piece that together very easily.
Right.
But what it does to the soul and the spirit, it's a killer. It's a soul killer.
Yep.
It is. And the damage it causes is incalculable. It really is. And like I always say, if you're not going to stand up for your own children, who the hell is?
Very true.
You can't depend upon someone like me, because by the time I get there, the damage is done. And it's been done. I care, yes, me and many others. But for God's sake, love your children enough. Please. Get them out of the situation. Do what's right for them. Love them. And that's all I'll say.
Well, April, I want to thank you for your candidness. I know that aside from this being your passion, it's also very personal, and Glenda and I can both feel the emotional toll it takes on you to go down these paths, and both of us admire your strength and your courage to do this in the hopes that one less child will have to endure. If you send that information to Glenda, she'll attach it directly underneath the chat
Okay.
So it'll be right here with the show.
Right.
Whenever you can get to it. I want to thank you. We would like you to come back, and we can discuss what that entails. And I'm going to allow Glenda to thank you as well, because I'm really good that way, and I also know what's best for me. Yeah, I also know what's best for me. I'm trying to stay safe. But I'm going to say goodnight and let Glenda thank you and, wrap the show.
Well, I want to say thank you for having me on. Excuse me, I got a dry throat. And thank you to those out there that are listening. And please continue to listen to Glenda and Larry. They both are very wise, caring people. And don't just look out for your own children, okay? Because there's children out there that need that neighbor,
Yep.
that friend,
Mm-hmm.
whoever. You might be the only one. And don't think you can't make a difference, because you can. Even if you can't totally change their world or stop what's happening to them, just letting them know that someone really cares can make a huge difference.
Exactly.
Well, all of us in the studio have done that, and I'm aware that we've all made a difference in our own way, but thank you
I'm
for
sure you
pointing
have.
out everyone has that opportunity, and hopefully you'll give them the courage and the passion to seize it.
Well,
I hope so, for the
April,
children.
I really want to thank you for opening up, and you and I have had our private conversations, and we come from pretty interesting backgrounds.
Very true.
I just want to say thank you for today's show. Thank you for everyone that listened. I also want to personally invite you, even though Larry already did it. But
That's
I
right,
also
it is your show.
Yes, it is my
Yeah,
show.
sorry.
I also like
Overstepped.
to personally invite you to come back in a few weeks, and we'll, let everyone know so we could continue this very important subject. So
I would say we hit it tonight, but there's a little more out there.
Oh, yes.
that
yes.
needs to be told.
Exactly. And, even if we just are able to obtain the safetyness of one child.
Exactly.
That's a job well done, I believe.
I agree.
So, thank you and have a good night. And we hope to see everyone next week here at Glenda's Dragon's Den on Sunday, 6 to 8. We usually open the chat room at 5:45, so we could all just settle down, get our cup of coffee, tea, whatever. Have a peaceful, peaceful week.
Ashley.
And blessings. Oh, yes, Ashley.
What I do?
What about your show?
It's on Thursdays. We talk about video games and anime and stuff. And we have sweet giveaway prizes. Like we're giving away 2 VIP tickets to this year's PsychoCon at Mountain Laurel Resort and Spa up on Whitehaven. It's about $120 value, so you might want to snag yours while you can. It's a 3-day badge, so you get to go to the whole convention. And it's also going to be our first live panel appearance at an anime convention. So.
And what's the show's name?
It's Geeked Out, G33KD0UT. Look us up on the Twitch streams.
All right, everyone, have a safe, blessed week.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Megan.
Yes, thank you for you did great job in the chat room. Thank you. All right, have a good one, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, April.